Alright, we're back.
Back another week.
Yet again. We're back down to 2 this week. We're thankful for our guest Jason last week, but duty calls, I suppose. He needs to work, so we can't fault him for that. Got to make some money. So yeah, props to him. But anyway, we actually were recording our podcast this week on a Thursday instead of a Wednesday, and that's a good thing because. Well, I have to give you credit for that, Ruben, because you said we wanted to delay it so that we could talk about the Xbox announcements this morning.
Yes.
But unbeknownst to me, this morning was also the review embargo that was lifted for the new Ryzen chips. The Ryzen 3 series that we talked about last week. So we got some confirmed data, some specs on that. We got some more details about the Xbox announcement today that we'll talk about. Lots of AMD in the news this last week, which is exciting. So we'll also get to that as well. I think we have a Last of Us 2 trailer to discuss as well for the podcast.
Definitely.
It's pretty dope, not gonna lie. What episode are we today? Are we episode 19? Are we 18?
I believe I'm gonna say 18.
Okay.
But I'm gonna check.
18 does ring a bell. Because last I remember we were episode 17, but I have not kept track. And it's my fault.
We are 18.
Today's episode. Alright, welcome to episode 18, everyone. Without further ado, also, if you hear me during the podcast today, kind of like skip or say, oh, like surprised, I'm currently waiting for a package to come in the mail. That's supposed to have my new mouse. It's one that I've wanted for a while now. It's the Logitech G Pro wireless. It's hella expensive, but I bought it because it was on there was 2 coupons through the Logitech website that brought it down by about $50 in price.
Dang.
To a total of $100.
Oh my god!
And if you think that's expensive, you should see the optional mouse pad that you could buy for it that charges the mouse while you're using it wirelessly, and that is another $150 mouse pad. So I did not get that.
That's so sick, though.
I know, right? I want it, but I'll have to wait another couple months till I recover financially from buying the mouse. So anyway, lots of AMD news in the tech world this week. But first, before I start fanboying about AMD like I usually do, let's go ahead and discuss some juicy leaks that happened here for Lenovo, of all companies. There's a leaked video of Lenovo's first gaming smartphone, and it's a weird one. I'm not gonna lie. It has a really interesting set of features that were, touted by the leaked video. That it's kind of like one of those like cinematic videos where it's like a render of the phone. It's like all dynamic and the phone's like flipping around and like you can, it lists the specs and stuff like that. So that's the type of video that was done there. But apparently a trusted source from XDA developers, which if any of you know XDA developers, it's a Android modification forum online. When I was into like modding and rooting Android phones, I was on XDA constantly trying to see how I could screw up my own phone. And for the record, I only screwed up one phone in my entire Android modding career. It was my LG G2, rest in peace. I bricked it. It was useless. I couldn't do anything with it.
That's the worst.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough pill to swallow, but luckily I was in a spot where I could just buy a new phone at that point, so it was
Remember those days.
Yeah. yeah, I know. I'm slightly crying right now. But anyway, back to this leak from Lenovo's first gaming phone. It's called the Lenovo Legion, according to the leak. And what I mean by weird feature set, it's really weird. Overall, the phone is really designed to be used in a horizontal way instead of a traditional like portrait way.
Yeah.
And it's really designed around that. Of course, with it being a gaming phone, some of this makes sense, as I'll explain here in a second. But so here's some specs here from the leaked video of the phone specifically. So it's going to have a 90-watt wired charging system, which is a lot. They claim that you can get from 0 to 100% in 30 minutes. That's impressive. Usually you see 30 minutes from like 0 to like 80 or 70% right now with some high wattage charging systems. So that's a bold claim there from Lenovo. And that's 0 to 100% in 30 minutes on a 5,000 milliamp hour battery.
Jeez.
Now, to put that in perspective, Ruben, the battery in your phone, you still have the Pixel, right?
Yes.
The Pixel 2, was it?
3XL.
That's the 3XL. Okay, so in the Pixel 3XL, I believe your phone has a 3080 milliamp hour battery. So to put that in perspective, this is almost double your battery capacity. I think 75% more-ish, is a closer number. But this 5,000 milliamp hour battery is also a dual cell battery. So there's 2 chambers of charge capacity in that battery. So that's also some good tech there. It also has a USB-C charging port, a SIM card tray instead of like a eSIM like most modern phones have. And it also has a data port, but no headphone jack at the bottom, and an additional USB-C port on the side. So it has like 2 USB-C ports on this phone. Yeah. Which is really interesting because usually you'll see that on gaming phones that have peripherals that are going to come with it, like a gamepad or something that's directly charged, or like a cooling fan, or things of that sort. But it also has speakers in the top and bottom bezel of the phone, and a microphone hole at the top. So as far as what the phone looks like, it has a symmetrical Y-shaped design on the back of the phone, like most Lenovo Legion brands. I really like this design personally. I almost bought a Lenovo Legion gaming laptop before I bought my current one, my Acer Predator Helios. And I have to admit, the Lenovo Legion gaming laptops, they're solidly built. I've held one, and they look really cool. And they also have a really good cooling system built into it. Just how the laptop folds when you flip the screen up, it kind of angles itself to where the cooling fans in the bottom of the laptop naturally draw in more air because they're at an angle. They're not like laying flat on whatever flat surface you have it on. But anyway, back to the phone. I keep on getting sidetracked about this phone. But back to the phone. It has dual cameras that are located in the center of the rear of the phone rather than in the top of the phone. And so that's weird, right? Yeah. And the logic behind that is that it's a more useful location for mobile gamers who are going to be holding the phone horizontally most of the time anyway. And here's the weirdest part about the phone. There is no camera notch on this phone, but instead the front camera appears to pop out of the phone. And we've seen that before, but this pop-out camera pops out of the side of the phone.
What?
Out of the left side of the phone, yeah. So when you have, when you're holding it in portrait mode, so when you have it horizontally or holding it horizontally, the pop-out camera pops out of the top of the phone, which is weird.
That is weird.
Yeah. So it's another design decision that seemingly is to push, the fact that gamers on a phone are going to be using it horizontally most of the time. So that makes logistical sense, but doesn't make practical sense. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, so there's also some other revealed specs that are not in the video that were provided by this leaker on XDA. It's supposed to be powered by Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 processor with a FS 3.0 internal storage, which is currently the fastest storage you can have on a mobile device, with LPDDR5 RAM. The screen is a 2340 by 1080 resolution with 144 hertz refresh rate. That's a high tier gaming monitor refresh rate right there.
It's like I'm tired of all these phones coming out that are faster than my TV and gaming monitor.
I know, right? and are cheaper than the TV when that came out first too. It's the sad world we live in, but technology moves on with or without us, I suppose. But other than that, the rear camera comes with a 64 megapixel sensor and a 16 megapixel wide angle camera. And the front camera that pops out of the side of the phone is a 20 megapixel camera. So, this is the rumors of Lenovo making a gaming phone have been kind of swirling around the rumor mill for the past couple months, but none of the, specs or really any of that have leaked until now. So, this could be a really good gaming phone. Gaming phones have gained popularity a lot within the last year, I feel. Last 2 years, really, because we have the ROG phone from Asus. We have the Red Magic phones out from China that have, built-in cooling fans. Those are really cool. We've talked about those on the podcast specifically before. You also have, like, the Razer gaming phones, which I think are really cool. The first-generation Razer gaming phone, you could buy it off of Amazon a couple months ago for, like, $250.
I forgot what gaming phone it was that was popular a couple years ago, where it came with like those attachments you're talking about, like to where you can turn it essentially into like a gamepad.
Yeah. You know what? I know which one you're talking about, but I can't think of the name either.
Because like they sold a bunch of weird like different attachments for it. Like I want to say there was like a video projector attachment and like just like a better camera attachment. It was weird. Yeah.
I wish I knew which one because I know which one you're talking about, but I can't think of it. But that only attests to how popular gaming phones are becoming, which is really, it's not strange to me, but it's definitely something that I don't fully comprehend, only because I don't really like gaming on my phone. I've tried it for a lot of different games, but it's never really stuck with me, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I guess just gaming on a phone doesn't give me the experience that I look for when I want to play a game. It's just not. I don't know. It's not conductive to me and what I seek in a video gaming experience. But to each their own. That doesn't mean that I will never game on my phone in the future. Maybe I will. Maybe it just takes the right game for me to get completely hooked. I mean, I was one of those back in the day. When MySpace had games, I was playing that freaking superhero run, and I think we played it together for a little bit too. It was like where you'd build out your superhero, you'd make him fight, and you could upgrade the armor pieces.
I think I remember.
Yeah, that's like the only like game that I remember that probably would work.
Dude, the old MySpace games. Oh my god.
Yeah, dude. The birth of Farmville, the freaking AIDS of social media platform games. That's where it all started.
Now everyone's playing Animal Crossing.
Yeah. And no one's complaining about that. So, yeah, how far we've come. The whole gaming thing. And you know what? Most of those games would play just fine on mobiles, on mobile phones nowadays. So maybe I'm sure that's the case right now, where those like Zynga, those old game developers are probably making mobile games right now as we speak. Anyway, moving on from the Lenovo story here. Our next story is AMD, and they confirmed Ryzen 4000 or Zen 3 processors will be compatible with current X570 boards and B550 boards, but there's no plans to support Ryzen 4000 series chips on X470, B450, X370, or X370 rather, chipsets on motherboards. So, I don't know how I feel about this. I'm willing to cut AMD some slack because they've had a great track record with backwards compatibility so far. Like, for example, you can go and buy a Ryzen 5 3600 CPU right now, and you can put it in your first generation X370 board, which is a board that I have right now. And with some BIOS updates, it'll work just fine. It'll handle the chip just fine. And so, with that being said, backwards compatibility can only go back so far. And I think we're seeing the physical limitations of that, not necessarily a financial limitation here for AMD. It's not like they're cutting back on compatibility because they want people to buy new boards. I think it's a physical limitation of the way that they're manufacturing chips now. So I think it's okay. Of course, it's not the best situation for people who are gaming on a budget, but as the platforms grow, as the lithography progresses, it's bound to happen, right? So we shouldn't really be, grabbing our torches and pitchforks over this.
Just yet.
Just yet, yes, just yet. So we'll see, and of course it's up to every motherboard vendor to develop their own BIOS updates and then push those BIOS updates on their customers and be available for download, so that people can update their X570 boards or their B550 boards to be compatible with this up and coming generation of Ryzen chips. So that was really cool to see that they did confirm that for X570 and B550, considering that the Ryzen 4000 series chips won't be out for quite some time, by the end of the year. So we'll see. But with that being said here, let's compare that to Intel, which with every new generation of chip that they have released for the past 3 years, I believe, they have required you to buy a new chipset and a new motherboard with it. And that's a horrible track record, and trust me, that pisses a lot of people off, me included. And that's why I haven't had a Intel-based platform for, oh gosh, how long is it? Has it actually been 2017? Yeah, since 2017 when Ryzen first generation came out, and I bought my Ryzen 7 1700. That was an 8-core, 16-thread CPU that I had for the time. That was a beast, dude. Yeah, it almost cost me $400. But man, that was a good chip, and it was a good computer that I had it in. So, anyways, AMD just stretching their, proverbial, biceps over at Intel, showing that they can, provide backwards compatibility and keep their customers happy. I'm not really a big fan that it's not going to be backwards compatible with B450. I think that's the biggest loss there, that the 4000 series chips are not going to be compatible with B450, especially since I know a lot of people put a lot of their money into buying B450 motherboards. Those are probably the more popular ones. Yeah, you're pointing to your CPU, your computer right now. But your upgrade path is still viable because you can get a 3000 series chip on your computer, and you'll get a really good boost in performance from that, and you won't see, it's not going to feel outdated for a while, thankfully. But yeah, so bravo to AMD on that. But switching gears here from AMD's desktop chipsets, there's actually some rumors here about AMD being in bed with Samsung. We may have mentioned it before about how AMD and Samsung are co-developing an RDNA-based mobile GPU. But we actually got some numbers on that this past week now. So, little history lesson. Let's go all the way back to when AMD's graphics division was not part of AMD and it was still ATI. Mm-hmm. ATI was, developed their own graphics processor just like NVIDIA does. And NVIDIA was their own thing back then as well. AMD purchased ATI Graphics so that they would have a graphics division within AMD instead of just CPUs. AMD started developing mobile graphics, to which they sold off to Qualcomm for a pretty penny many years ago. And so that's why on every Qualcomm Snapdragon processor today, you have the Qualcomm Snapdragon whatever, right? 865, 730, 765, whatever it is. And then the GPU located on that system on a chip, the SoC, is called the Adreno. So that's like the Adreno 450 or Adreno 560, whatever that is. And if you notice, Adreno is an anagram of Radeon, because AMD sold their mobile Radeon graphics division to Qualcomm so many years ago, and Qualcomm has used that to develop their own GPUs for their mobile processors. So, little history lesson on that. It's really cool. But anyway, fast forward to today, and it looks like AMD is continuing with their own mobile graphics processing development with Samsung, probably on the 7nm, 5nm lithography that Samsung has built up for itself. Now, this is great, because historically speaking, the Samsung Exynos processors have done great in compute performance when compared to Snapdragon processors, but the Exynos GPU has always lost pretty hard to the Adreno CPUs in Qualcomm Snapdragon processors. So, with AMD stepping in, the current leaks from some benchmarking figures of this RDNA, which is the current Navi-based GPUs that AMD is working on right now, the 5600, the 5500, the 5700 series graphics cards. It's the same design language that they're using for these mobile GPUs. The current top-end Adreno GPU is the 650. So benchmarking this custom AMD/Samsung mobile chip with against an Adreno 650, there's a couple of mobile tests, like benchmarks, right? Like for a computer, you have Cinebench R15 or R20, as well as gaming benchmarks, built into like Tomb Raider and Red Dead Redemption, that sort of thing. There's similar tests for mobile GPUs and games and stuff like that. And so comparing the AMD RDNA mobile chip to the Adreno 650, in the Manhattan 3.1 test for mobile, the RDNA mobile chip scored an average of 181 frames per second, while the Snapdragon Adreno 650 scored 123 frames per second. So that's a 48% increase over the Snapdragon counterpart. In the Aztec test, under normal graphic fidelity, the RDNA mobile chip scored 138.25 frames per second, and the Adreno 650 scored a 53.5 frames per second score for a 158% increase over the Snapdragon one. Now, this is where it gets the most crazy with the test, and that the Aztec test has a normal setting and it has a high setting to really demand the most out of mobile processors, and that's usually where the numbers are tanked. Like, it's really bad frames per second for that. But the RDNA mobile chip scored 58 frames per second on that test, while the Adreno 650 scored 20 frames per second. So yeah, that's and for the number geeks out there, that's 190% better performance from the AMD custom chip than the Snapdragon Adreno. So that's now keep in mind, the Adreno 650 is the GPU that is found on the current Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra phone, which is $1,500, $1,700 for the top tier one, or maybe even $2,000 for the top tier one. So, and that phone came out 3 months ago, 2.5 months ago, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, super recently. And the fact that AMD is is helping Samsung develop a chip that beats its current flagship by that much in graphics performance, that's a huge leap. And honestly, would I buy a Samsung phone if it had an RDNA GPU in there? Probably. With these numbers, probably. Just because I'm an AMD fanboy. But that's just me, right? So only time will tell, right? If this takes off with Samsung, as long as it's not an exclusive contract with Samsung, I would love to see AMD get their grubby hands all over the mobile markets and provide some real competition in the Android space with the Qualcomm Snapdragon series processors for phones, and maybe if it's even good enough, maybe even compete against the iPhone, because the iPhone GPU and CPU, they're controlled so well from design to implementation on the iPhone that no Android phone can really compare to iPhones in benchmarks. That's just the fact, as much as I hate to admit it. But times change, Apple can get complacent. AMD has been hitting the ground running for years now, and now they're tackling the mobile space. We'll see how that goes. We have seen companies fail in mobile processing manufacturing. You ever have a TI-82 calculator, a TI-86, or ever use one in high school?
Yeah.
They make mobile processors, or at least they used to. They weren't really good, and I know because I had a really cheap smartphone back in the day. It was like a prepaid, like Alcatel phone or something like that had a TI processor in it. It was garbage. So I can personally attest to that. They no longer make smartphone processors, and for a good reason. But anyway, so that's exciting things here with AMD, starting to get into the mobile mobile phone space. They recently made waves with their mobile Ryzen processors, so making their way into phones, I think it's a good step for the company. All right, switching gears. back to AMD. More AMD stories, man. I'm telling you, they're doing great.
AMD's making money moves, man.
They are. They're killing Intel right now, and it's about time because Intel has been on top for so long, and they got so complacent. And same thing with NVIDIA too. You know, like AMD's bringing the competition, and we as consumers we benefit because it drives prices down and you know, performance up. So that's why I'm covering AMD. That's why I'm such an AMD fanboy, because I love a good underdog story, and we're seeing the uptick here for AMD's you know, underdog story. But last story of the tech section here today, and that is that this morning the review embargo was lifted for the AMD Ryzen 3 3300X and 3100 CPUs. Although, in my opinion, the 3300X is the more compelling of the two, and that's mainly what I'm going to be covering right now. But anyway, and most of the reviews that were posted today usually are, you know, by Linus Tech Tips, Gamers Nexus, Hardware Connects. What's another one that I have in there? I don't think Optimum Tech posted a review today. But anyway, my usual channels, my usual sources for reviews, non-YouTube, you know, review channels like AnandTech, have basically crowned the Ryzen 3 3300X and 3100 the new Core i5s of gaming, and that's all you really need for gaming. So it's really cool to see that these new Ryzen 3100 and 3300X CPUs totally squash, well, not totally squash, but they perform significantly better than the Core i7 7700K, which was Intel's flagship CPU from 2017, so not that far away, which was also a 4-core, 8-thread CPU. You know, these new Ryzen chips do better, and they're $100 and $120 respectively, whereas that Core i7 from 2017 was, what was it, almost $400 at launch?
Something like that.
Yeah, so it was like $350 or something like that, but these new mobile chips, essentially, especially the 3300X, the consensus for that chip is that it's all you really need for gaming. So you could throw a 3300X in a B450 or B550 motherboard, and you can put, you know, like a 2080 in there, and you're gonna get the most out of your 2080. It's gonna be able to, you know, run without any real bottlenecks there, thanks to the 4-core, 8-thread count of the 3300X. The 3300X power draw wise, I think it maxes out at like 71 watts, which on a CPU with that many cores and threads causes it to get really hot. You know, it's a little toasty. Now keep in mind that that's really the same power draw out of the Ryzen 5 3600, which is a 6-core 12-thread, so you have more cores and threads for that heat to be dissipated on the physical chip. But you know, with that being said, as long as you you know, keep it cool, and really the box cooler that comes with the CPU, the 3300X, that's enough to really keep the 3300X cool, even with a mild overclock. And that was the other thing here, the 3300X, it doesn't have a lot of overclocking room. You can have it on an all-core boost to 4.2 gigahertz, and it'll sustain that. But in most games, you're only pushing out an extra, you know, 5 frames per second at best, you know, 1 frame per second at worst.
To the point to where it's not really even worth it to put the extra strain on it.
Yeah, essentially. If you want more overclocking headroom, then the 3100 is your best bet, but even then, it overclocks higher, but, you know, the performance difference, it's not going to get to the same performance as a 3300X. You're going to approach it, but it's not going to be that level, mainly because of the difference between the two chips that we discussed last week. Whereas the 3100 has 2 CCX dies, so there's latency between the two sets of CCXs with 2 cores and 4 threads on each to communicate with each other. Whereas there's 1 CCX die on the 3300X that doesn't have to waste time communicating between 2 CCXs, because there's only 1, and there's 4 cores and 8 threads on that one. So again, these chips, you know, they're making waves for Ryzen. I'm excited about them. I can't wait to see a full-fledged Ryzen 4000 series family. You know, with the Ryzen 4100, with the Ryzen 3 4100 and 4300X CPUs, the new Ryzen 5 4000, and then even the Ryzen 9 4000 series. I was searching on PC Part Picker the other day, and I was like, what's the cheapest Ryzen 9 CPU I can get? And the answer was like $400 and something for like an 8-core 16-thread, I think. So super tempting. If I'm gonna ball out on a CPU, on a computer build here soon for gaming and for music production and video editing, which is something I've wanted to do for a while now. I don't know. We'll see. Actually, the Ryzen 9, I think it was a 12-core, 24-thread. And just to put that in perspective, that would have been a Threadripper CPU in the first gen Ryzen.
Jeez.
Yeah. So Threadripper, don't get me started on Threadripper because I'd love to build Threadripper, but that's literally in the thousands of dollars for a budget one. Even that's like choosing the lowest end Threadripper with the cheapest TRX board you can find, having a power supply that supports it all, and then RAM to take advantage of all those cores and stuff like that. But anyway, I digress. New Ryzen 3 CPUs, new kings of budget gaming. They the current Intel Core i3 9100F can't even compare to it. Like, the performance just isn't there. The current Intel Core i5s, they compete very well, but you can't find them right now for their MSRP price of $85. That would make them competitive with these new Ryzen chips. The Core i5s right now, you'll find them for like almost double that, like $130, $140, $150 for that. And at that price to performance, it doesn't really make sense. A really good bargain right now would be, alternative to this Ryzen, to these new Ryzen 3 chips would be AMD's own Ryzen 5 1600 AF, which is really a second gen Ryzen chip that has 6 cores and 12 threads, and should be $75 if you can find it. That's the MSRP, but because they're so popular, they're rarely at that price if they're even in stock. So, as far as convenience and price per dollar goes, like these new Ryzen 3 chips, they're going to be the new go-to budget gaming CPUs for people to get the most out of their money, which is exciting for me.
Because, for a lot of people.
Yeah, for real. Because, even with first-gen Ryzen, like, that was, similar performance could be found on a Ryzen 5 1600, and that's a $210 CPU. And so we're seeing comparable performance to that now today for literally half the price.
Yeah.
So that's exciting to me. Being not made of money, that's what I like to hear as far as strides in tech goes. But yeah, that's all the tech news I have today. I know we have good gaming stuff to discuss, so the time is now yours, Ruben.
Alrighty, sir. Well, of course, like you stated in the beginning, I wanted to delay to today because I knew Xbox was having their event. I wasn't super stoked on everything I saw, but I mean, at the same time, it's kind of expected. Yeah, they hyped it up, but there's still most of the year before this next gen comes out. You don't want to show all your best footage in, the first showing, and then you have nothing to remind people the rest of the year.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we got to see the quote-unquote Assassin's Creed Valhalla gameplay, which included maybe 2 to 3 seconds of gameplay.
Yeah.
around
gameplay trailer.
Around the rest of just cinematics. But that game definitely still looks super cool. I definitely want to play it. One of the ones that caught me the most, though, was the Medium. I know you said you've seen a little bit of it, correct?
Yeah, I saw like little snippets of like some of the games.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Googling it right now just to see if I can refresh my memory on the Medium.
Basically, you play as a Medium. It's a survival horror. I want to say they worked on some games that they've worked on is like I believe they mentioned Blair Witch was one of the ones that they previously worked on.
Yeah.
So they're not exactly brand new because they do have quite a few games under their belt. But I thought it was super interesting the way, like, obviously they talked about how you're going to be seeing both the real world and the spiritual world, and certain events can trigger that. But what I thought was really nice is now on the next gen, how quickly those transitions happen with no loading and like the smoothness of everything is really nice to see on a home console. Because I mean, it's to be expected on PCs now with all these solid state drives, but of course these next gen consoles are the first time they're ever going to have those.
Yeah.
So I'm super interested to play that, sir. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I love me a good horror game, once, and then never play it again.
And then take a break for the next year.
Yep. And especially for this game, it's really cool, because essentially, I don't know if this is true or not, this is purely based on assumption, but the Xbox is going to be in charge of basically rendering 2 worlds at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's a challenge from a technological perspective. Depending on how it's coded to run on the Xbox, if that's how it is, then that's probably why they chose it to be announced today. As a quote unquote launch title, basically because it's one of the first games that was announced for the new Xbox.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to bet that it's because of something like that it's more of a technical achievement.
I definitely could see that. Another thing that I was super stoked on was their sound design for the game. I'm not sure if you saw who they got.
No, I didn't see that.
It's basically the person behind like the original Silent Hill game soundtrack.
Ooh, so a seasoned veteran in sound design for that specific genre of game, which is super important because that's what really scares me with games.
Yeah, that can make or break a scary game for sure.
Yeah, I mean, look at the original Slender, the 8 pages. Garbage game, graphically speaking. But when you grab a page and the crickets start chirping louder and the heartbeat starts going and then more sounds progress with more pages that you grab, and then that that bum when the Slenderman is in your vision, that's the Slenderman walks up to you and it's nothing scary, but it's that sound that really makes you pee your pants.
Yeah,
I speak from personal experience.
Dude, that's pretty funny that you brought that game up because I was literally thinking about finding that game the other day.
Dude, I played it like 4 months ago.
Really?
Yeah, I played it for the first time 4 months ago.
That's
and
funny.
I couldn't, dude. Like, I had my headphones on, like, I had it, like, full volume to, like, get the whole experience. I'm like, I want to see if this game's actually scary now that I have a PC that can run it. Yeah, still scary. I can confirm to you that it's still scary. And I yelled, not gonna lie. When when that first jump there of the Slenderman and the sound design just, like, boom, right in your ear. So, if a game like Slenderman, the 8 pages, can invoke that type of feeling with, such a long time ago, then this game, the Medium, should be really good.
For sure. Another thing that interests me about Next Gen is this whole new concept that they're talking about called smart delivery. Have you actually heard of that or know what that is, sir? I'm not sure how closely you've been following like all the Xbox news.
Yeah, not super closely. That's a term that I've definitely heard used before, but I wouldn't be able to tell you what it is.
So basically, it's this super cool thing that, you wish was around forever. But basically, all these games that are coming out that are going to be on this gen and next gen, so like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, for instance, they are giving basically developers options to do smart delivery, which is if you were to buy let's say Valhalla was out today, if you were to buy it today and then in the future you were to upgrade to the Xbox Series X and put that game in there, it would download assets for you to get the Xbox Series X version off your old disc.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah, I did hear about that. I just didn't know that was called that.
Super cool. However, one company has already managed to kind of screw it up, and I would bet money you could easily guess who that is.
Activision.
No.
EA.
So they announced that basically Madden 21 was going to be smart delivery, and they goofed up by basically making it timed smart delivery. So you have to have the game and upgrade by, I think it was sometime in like December, so it's not even a long time. Yeah. And then you're back to the back to where you have your old disc or you have to just get the new one.
Dang, they're thirsty for money, man.
Thirsty for that money.
Nothing new. Nothing I wouldn't expect of them, but when will they learn, man? How many Star Wars games will they have to mess up before they learn?
Right. I'm wondering how much longer they're gonna hold on to that. I would imagine after they helped out with Fallen Order, it would.
Yeah, that's definitely a good mark on their report card. But you know, if your report card comes in and you have an A in art, but you're failing everything else, it's not a good report card, you know.
Right. And then based off that smart delivery, I just wanted to read off a list of some games that we already know for sure are going to have it. One being Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Call of the Sea, Chorus, which is another horror game that looks really interesting, Cyberpunk 2077,
Woo.
Dirt 5, Scarlet Nexus, Second Extinction, The Ascent, Yakuza Like a Dragon, and I saved this one for last because this game looked horrible and I can't believe they decided to show it in this showcase. But Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2.
Oh, yeah.
Did you watch?
Not the full trailer, just snippets of it.
Did you did you see the quality?
No, I didn't. I have to rewatch the whole
garbage.
trailer.
Like, the characters in the trailer didn't seem like they were all the way rendered. And like the hair on characters was just like super bland. I don't know how to explain it other than the models just did not look finished.
Was it like SmackDown vs. Raw 2020 unfinished, or a little bit better than that? Because that's pretty bad.
A little bit better, but like, you know when you're playing a game and it cuts to a cutscene and the cutscene doesn't load right and everything's slowly popping in?
Yeah.
Like, some of the characters look like that.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, if you're showing off next gen and you want to come out with a bang, why show that?
Right, yeah.
Me personally, I would have just been like, it's not ready, we're not doing this.
Yeah, no kidding. Or if I was, Microsoft, it would have been like, here's more Halo.
Right? No, we're not getting Halo till... Halo gameplay trailer is in July, I believe, sir.
Jeez.
2 more months.
It better be super good, man, if they're making us wait like this.
They really have to turn it around, because Halo 5 was garbage. Like, I'm a Halo guy, and Halo 5 was so garbage that since it's come out, I've forgotten that it existed several times. And that I've beat it.
Dang.
Like, it was that, yeah.
Dang. Needless to say, after today's announcement, Sony fanboys have their high hopes for the PS5. Even with all the rumors of development hell that it's going through, it's got a shot still.
I think obviously PlayStation 5 is not going to tank unless like they have really bad heating problems or cooling problems and all that at launch. Obviously Sony's going to live to see another day.
Yeah, they will. They're too big to fail as they currently stand.
One thing that I'm super stoked about is because Xbox has put out theirs, we can only assume that Sony will not be far behind. Because it seems to me like Sony always waits for Xbox to try and put out the first thing so they can be last in the conversation. They want to have the last word.
Yeah, and that way it's strategic because they can see what Xbox has done and they're like, oh, like all we have to do is make it this much better for our announcement, and it'll get people more excited and interested in our console.
They're like, people didn't like seeing Vampire the Masquerade, let's not show a game like that.
I know. Alright, cancel the show of the new Twilight video game. We're not going to show that.
And then just a little quick one since we were talking about Halo, Halo 2 from the Master Chief Collection will be available on PC on May 12th, which is right around the corner.
Woo!
5 days.
Oh, that's true, dude. That's so soon. Halo 2, man. I remember Halo 2 was fun.
Halo 2 was fun.
Halo 2 was super fun.
Obviously, first time you got to use an energy sword.
Yep.
Terrific. what this gets me most excited for, though, is they've been pumping them out pretty fast from this Master Chief Collection.
Yeah.
And I cannot wait for Halo 3 to be on PC.
Yeah, dude.
Because Halo 3 with Forge and making your own game modes had some of the best maps and funnest games.
Yeah.
Like what? Like Duck Hunt? Great.
Dude, Rooster Teeth made so much content off of that. So much content.
Off of all of Halo. They made the whole company basically off of
Halo. Yeah, pretty much. Now but Forge specifically, like, I lost track of how many fucking videos they made off of that.
They're in season like 19 or something. I think. 18 or 19 of Red vs. Blue.
Yeah. Almost as old as we are.
Dude, yeah, I remember watching that in middle school.
Yeah, dude.
It's wild. Because I've literally, when I think about it like that, I've watched Rooster Teeth content for basically half, if not a little more than half of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when you're 90 years old and be like, I've been consuming Rooster Teeth for 90% of my life.
But yeah, super excited for Halo 3 after, of course, Halo 2 comes out. Another big one for a lot of people, not really myself because I couldn't get into these games, but Mass Effect Trilogy Remaster is rumored to be out before next April. Which is huge because Mass Effect has a huge following. I know a lot of people weren't really happy with the ending of 3, and then what's that other one that came out after?
Andromeda as a whole. Yeah. It was garbage. It was really bad. I don't even play Mass Effect, and I could tell that Mass Effect Andromeda was a huge steaming dump.
For sure. What I'm wondering is if they've been planning this for a while, or if they want to try and push Andromeda out and do like a fourth one. Obviously, I'm not a fan of Mass Effect, so I don't know how the third ended, if there can be a fourth one.
Yeah.
But it definitely strikes me curious just because it's been so long in my eyes. I know obviously a lot of the older games are getting remasters. I feel like Mass Effect isn't like super old, so I don't know how well graphically they can improve it personally.
Right.
What I do think would be cool though is if they're going to include them all in a bundle, if it let you just play seamlessly through all the games, like without exiting to a menu to pick 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah, that'd certainly be nice, especially with most Mass Effect fans that I know of that have expressed their feelings to me about why they like the game. It's because of the story and what you can do with it. Mm-hmm. So if it's all like if it's one endless string from 1 to 3, and then Andromeda, if they want to include that in there too, then I think that would be a huge selling point for the game that would appeal to the majority of the players that play Mass Effect.
And then what I think would be really cool is, I don't know if any other game has done this, but if they allowed, like, if it did all play seamlessly 1 through 3 like that, if they let you carry whatever items you had from the end game into the next one, and it just progressively still gets harder.
That'd be gnarly. That'd be a lot of work, but since the reported date is next April, I feel like that's plenty of time to work something out like that.
Right. That is all on Mass Effect, sir. Next up, I have some Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order news.
Really? News?
Yes, because they put out a DLC, a free DLC update, which was revealed on Star Wars Day, May the 4th.
Okay.
And this DLC is pretty sick. It gets people some free cosmetics, some new combat challenges that can be accessed through meditation points. The challenges are super tough and are meant to be taken when you're at your best. So, like, you definitely don't want to start a new game and then do these challenges because you won't have the abilities for this. And then they also added in New Game Plus, so you can keep all your lightsaber colors and all your customization options. The only thing that relocks is you have to re-unlock your force powers.
Yeah.
But it's nice because when I played it, it's always nice to have a new game plus where it just keeps getting harder and harder and harder.
Yeah.
So it kind of sucks when you beat a game and then your only option is to start new. So they added in a new game plus.
Yeah, especially if you have like your look picked out and your cosmetics and everything. Like being able to start a game like that just makes it you appreciate the game more and your efforts and that you put into the game if you can just do it that way.
And then another thing that's nice is with New Game Plus, all the boxes you open for your customization items or whatnot will stay open, so you're not opening empty boxes.
Yeah,
which is nice. They also added in a new mode called, what was it? Battle Grid. And Battle Grid is what I'm really excited for. Basically, it's a create your own battle scenario. To where you can put any enemies you want wherever you want on whatever level and just set up these super sick battle scenarios.
How many Hello There General Kenobi recreations do you think we're gonna see from that?
Not only that, I might be a bad person because this is where my mind went first.
I think I know where you're going.
How long before a mod that introduces younglings and you're pulling an Anakin on all the younglings?
Yeah. For PC, I don't imagine that'd be too hard because all you'd have to do is scale down a certain enemy, make them look like children, right? And then just like blurp,
go ham.
Yep. Create the character model for episode 3 Anakin, and boom. That's actually genius.
Yeah. In terms of news, that is all I have, but I do have a couple of discussion points.
Ooh, let's go. Into any particular subject?
2. The Last of Us 2 trailer.
Okay.
And Mortal Kombat RoboCop.
Yes, yes. So exciting, so exciting.
Where would you like to start, sir?
Let's start with RoboCop first, because I actually thought about this for a little bit. So, MK11, the new DLC is called Aftermath. So this takes place right after the story mode of the MK11 story mode, where Liu Kang is the thunder fire god of time, basically. And so he has to rebuild history. So at the end of MK11 story, we believe that all of everything that has happened in MK's story up to this point was going to get retconned, right? Which could be cool because who doesn't like more Mortal Kombat, right? And setting up those storylines again. But in this DLC, Liu Kang is trying to rebuild, the timeline. But then Shang Tsung appears and says you can't do that because you need Kronika's crown that you destroyed when you killed her. And it's basically, back and forth between, Shang Tsung and Raiden, like, why should I trust you? And Shang Tsung's like, because I was there and I know how Kronika works and how this works. So, we don't have all the story details for that DLC yet. I hope it's a sizable story mode DLC.
I would hope so, because it is, the add-on for everything is $40. So it's basically almost the cost of a whole game. Probably is the cost of Mortal Kombat 11 now.
Right. And hopefully this is going to set up for MK12.
Or MK1.
Oh my gosh, you're right. MK 1.2. Oh my gosh, we're geniuses. We figured this out. Thank you, NetherRealm. But yeah, so it should be interesting. The most interesting part of that, besides the story component, right? Because who doesn't love a good story, is the inclusion of RoboCop in the DLC characters there, along with Shiva and that wind-using guy. I forget his name. I'm not the biggest Mortal Kombat fan, so anyone listening, don't eat me alive for that. But RoboCop's really interesting, and the more I thought about it, the more it made sense to put RoboCop in Mortal Kombat, because you and I, Ruben, we were actually talking about RoboCop not too long ago. I want to say like a couple months ago, and just how bloody and how gory those original RoboCop movies were. So like, when I thought about it, when I saw the trailer for it the other day, I was like, why would they put RoboCop? Like, that's so cheesy. Like, they already have Terminator, and what's RoboCop going to do? Like, different, the buttons for different ways to shoot his gun or something?
Right.
I kind of mocked it, of course, but of course, it's 90s cheese, so I loved it, right? The concept of it. But the more I thought about it, like, it fits perfectly, like, with the Mortal Kombat theme of, like, violence, blood, and gore, because that's all RoboCop was. Like, if you go back and watch the RoboCop movies, they're brutal.
Yeah.
doesn't a dude get his dick shot off in, like, RoboCop 1?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Like, that sort of stuff, right? So, like, it fits the theme of Mortal Kombat.
Let that be one of his fatalities.
That would be great. Just shooting your dick off. Oh my gosh. I hope so.
Or a brutality at the least.
Yeah, for sure. Fingers crossed for that, because that'd be perfect. It would fit in. It makes sense for RoboCop. And so, yeah, the more I thought about it, the more it made sense that RoboCop would be a DLC character for Mortal Kombat.
I'm wondering what characters we're going to get in the next game, because 9 was it 9 or 10? I know. Oh no, I think this was both in 10. They had Alien, Predator,
yeah,
and then they also had Leatherface and Jason, I believe.
Yeah, they also did they have Freddy? They had Freddy too.
Freddy was in 9.
Was it a 9?
It was a 9.
Okay. I thought he was in MKX for some reason. But I do remember Predator and Alien.
So I'm wondering who else they're gonna be throwing in from different movie franchises.
Yeah, especially of like the 90s when MK, when Mortal Kombat 1 was like the thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of good franchises to pull from there, but eventually you're gonna run out. So it's like, where do you Chucky? You think we can get Chucky?
That'd be interesting. It'd be all tiny.
Yeah, for sure. But it'd be interesting for sure. Do I think it's gonna happen? Yes. How they're gonna do it, I don't know. But I'm keeping my finger. I'm calling it right now. Let it be known right now that I'm calling that in the next MK game, Chucky is gonna be a DLC character. It's gonna have something to do with Shang Tsung.
That'd be
I'm
so
calling
sick.
that right now too. Like Shang Tsung, the soul manipulator, that shit, like, perfectly fits in with Chucky. Like, what if they mix it in to where it's like where Chucky learned that incantation to get into the doll from Shang Tsung.
That'd be
in
interesting.
disguise. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
One other thing two other things that I'm super stoked about is the return of friendships and stage fatalities.
Yeah, they look good.
Yeah, they look real good. Super excited for friendships because they haven't been in a long time.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if in the next DLC update, if they're going to bring back the animalities.
That would be really cool. That'd be really cool.
It'd be super sick.
Yeah. Although, like I said, I'd never really played Mortal Kombat extensively, so I don't really know, but I don't really remember much of the animalities and what the good ones were. And because the only one I remember, and it may not be an animality, correct me if I'm wrong, is Liu Kang's dragon transformation.
I want to say in one of the games they made it an animality.
Okay. That's really the only one
I mean,
I know.
In all the other games, they have a version of that being his regular fatality, so...
Right. And isn't there a Rhino one?
I'm not sure.
I want to say there's a Rhino animality. I think it was like Stryker or Jax. One of the military
Might have been Jax.
I think so. Don't quote me on that, but that's all the animality knowledge I can, my ears are fuming right now because my brain's overclocking to try and remember any animalities.
And then, now, moving on from Mortal Kombat, The Last of Us 2 trailer.
Yeah, we watched that right before the podcast today.
What do you think? I've watched it like 4 times.
Right, so... It's intense. You warned me that it was intense, and I definitely agree. I love that it's moving on with the theme of the whole evolution of post-apocalyptic living, because many years ago there was this whole zombie apocalypse, trend going on in shows and movies and video games that we've kind of moved on from since then, right? Just like popular culture nowadays has moved on. We've still kind of clung to that apocalypse theme for our movies, for our games and stuff like that. So this trailer pushes a heavy focus on the person-to-person dangers of a post-apocalyptic situation. The first Last of Us was a lot on, based on survival, against these creatures, with an infectious disease that, poses a real mortal threat, much like in a regular zombie apocalypse. But this game, in the trailers that we've seen so far, we have seen none of that. None that I can remember, right? And I haven't seen the Last of Us 2 content extensively as much as you have, but from what I can recall, we have seen none of that, creature madness.
Yeah, like they don't place a heavy emphasis on it in the trailer. Like you see it, but it appears more as like you're caught off guard rather than walking into a town and seeing them just walking everywhere. Like it's more of a surprise, whereas in the first one, like you said, it's more about like survival, and in this one it seems more about hunting in a way. Like
the creatures are more lethal pests than a mortal constant danger.
Well, and then like your whole what I'm guessing is going to be our whole like motive too, like instead of just trying to survive and get across country, like this trailer gives off the feeling like you are going after something.
Yeah.
Or someone.
Yeah. Or a group of people. That's definitely the vibe that was thrown off there. And it's like almost exclusively from Ellie's point of view.
Yeah.
So, you see Ellie, in between games, mature from this young girl to this young adult in Last of Us 2. That's going on this, seeming revenge trip, from what I could tell in the trailer. We won't know until, the gameplay comes out and we play through it, but from what I can tell, like, it's going to be a good character evolution. It's going to focus much more heavily on, the human-to-human interaction, like, the inner brain works of of how characters make decisions. It's definitely going to be more socially complicated as far as story goes, and not as mortally dramatic as the first Last of Us, which I think is a good natural progression of that story.
Another thing that I was super interested by in the trailer is it's the first trailer we've gotten for Last of Us 2 that shows Ellie again as a kid. So I'm unsure if there's just going to be flashbacks or if this game is going to start off in the past and then do like a 10-year jump or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I personally think...
Not 10 years, but however long.
Right, yeah. 10 years, that'd be a big jump. But yeah, I personally think that the game's going to start out with young Ellie, kind of in that same kind of timeline that Last of Us 1 still ended. And then there's going to be, that's going to be like what gets you settled into Last of Us 2 to get you refamiliarized with the concept of Last of Us. And then there's going to be a time jump, and that's when the story's really going to start picking up. Kind of just to remind you of like the repercussions of how Last of Us 1 ended, and what that means for the continuation of the story. More of a tone-setting thing, rather than just throwing you into Last of Us 2. That's just me. I could be totally wrong, but that's how I see it happening, at least.
I feel like this game is gonna have some hefty decisions.
Yeah.
Like, it's gonna be moving the way the first one was, but in a totally different way.
It's gonna make you question yourself, man.
Yeah, for sure.
It's gonna make you question yourself for real.
Like, the graphics and the gameplay are so smooth and like killer. Like, some key points that stood out to me in the trailer weren't even like the big action events that were happening, but like the weapon customization table when Ellie takes it off and just like cocks the pistol, or like when it does that zoom in of her face and there's just like blood all over it and she's like what looks like crying.
Yeah.
Crazy.
The environments, the whole, the cityscape, the post-apocalyptic cityscape with, words splattered on the wall, and obviously time has passed and there's greenery growing out of the abandoned cars and things like that. It's a very beautiful looking game. that we can tell. And from what I can see, that's pretty much in-engine footage.
Yeah.
And it's rendered that way, so we can expect that for the entire gameplay experience, which cannot be said for games like Assassin's Creed, Valhalla. So
yeah, gameplay.
Yeah, quote unquote. But yeah, Last of Us 2, super excited to see what goes on there. I love a good story, and as I said last week, I read some of the spoilers, purported leak spoilers of it. So I just can't wait to see how the story progresses.
Dude, I want to play it day one so bad.
You will. If you put your mind to it, you will.
It's next month, man.
What?
Yeah.
You may have to think a little harder to play it day one.
Big brain time.
Yeah.
But that's all I have today, sir. I don't know if you have anything you'd like to discuss.
Just one last thing, because we're already past our hour mark. It's not really any big news per se, but it's a cool little tidbit on the league side of things. In the off season, there's not really much that goes on. But recently, on the Crackdown podcast, that's with Thorin and I Will Dominate, their latest guest was Jack, the owner of Cloud9. And so he went on there and he shared some pretty good facts, some pretty good stories with us, which were not limited to what he does for Cloud9 every year for the split for NA, is that he orders shirts that say Cloud9, 2019's split champions, and that every year he orders them for the team. And, if they don't win the championship, then he basically just throws those shirts brand new away, donates them.
Jesus.
So, this year that didn't happen because they won the spring split. So, he has a shirt. And he was wearing a shirt to the podcast that said, Cloud9 2019 spring split champions, which is pretty cool. He said that last year he had one that was like sneaky themed, just for sneaky, but they didn't win last one. And so they kind of, they had to... he had to throw away the shirts, basically, like he does every time when they don't win the championship for NA. But other than that, he mentioned about his story on what he did to try to get G2 Caps onto Cloud9 the year that Jensen left Cloud9. He basically said that when he spoke with G2 and Caps, that he basically gave him a blank check and said, write your price, like, that's no issue, like, come play with us. But that Cap still denied it because he didn't see, World's opportunities with Cloud9. And so he basically said NA sucks and stayed with G2. And it's a good decision because G2 is one of the most dominant teams in League right now in the entire world. So, fun stuff there. I watched some of the podcast before I showed up to record today. I'll probably finish listening to the rest of it tonight, to be honest. Jack's a really cool guy. I've always believed that. He runs a great organization. And this little podcast on the Crackdown in which he guest starred in for I Will Dominate and Thorin kind of solidified that. He's a cool guy. He knows how to he knows how to do his business, but he's also down to earth as far as I can tell. So that's all really the league news that I have to share this week. So with that, we will end the podcast here. We're about an hour and 8 minutes in. So the news is popping back up again. It feels so good. Like, we were in a drought right there where we were like, what are we going to talk about? And luckily, that's when League was still in season for the split, so that kind of padded the blow there. But yeah, I'm glad that tech is ramping up. We got some good video games to look forward to. The summer season's here. Got some good tech on the horizon. I'm going to buy it.
Hopefully there's going to be a lot more Xbox related stories here soon too, because they announced that they were going to be stretching basically their shows they were going to do for E3 and other places. They're going to be stretching them over these next 3 months, so hopefully we'll have some more better Xbox news.
Yeah, we're going to see a lot more Sony stuff too, because they've been pretty silent so far, so I think they're going to just drop the bomb on us with lots of killer titles. As far as I can tell, Biomutant has not been canceled yet, but we haven't heard from THQ Nordic about that. Still fingers crossed. I'm gonna talk about this every single episode until I hear something or until I can buy the damn game. So, and I am gonna buy it. Trust me. That I'm gonna buy it release day. That's the goal.
Welcome to podcast episode 384. We're still waiting on Biomutant.
Yeah, they still haven't provided an update, but we're pretty sure they're still developing the game. Cyberpunk, 3077, great game by the way. But yeah, so we'll keep our eyes open for that. Without further ado, we will end the show here. As always, thanks to everyone who listens. We appreciate your patronage and you tuning in. We're averaging about 10 viewers a week now through our YouTube channels. So if you guys haven't subscribed there, we only have about 5 subscribers right now, but with 12 viewers. So please subscribe if you haven't already. We appreciate it. That's how you'll get the latest episode of the podcast. If you don't like YouTube for whatever reason, you can reach us on Anchor, which links you to our Spotify for the published episodes, Apple Podcasts, TuneIn Radio, I don't know, listen to us on your toaster if you can. But yeah, we appreciate your support as always. So with that, I'm going to bring up our files of outro music, that way we can play it. But yeah, thanks guys, and we will see y'all next week.
Later.